Miranda brightened, delighted with his plan. Ma looked around to see if there were any other takers. I don't feel like playing. I'd have to change, but it'd be fun to watch. I could be the ref. My eyes won't miss a thing. Volleyball's a good idea, but there should probably be something happening for those who aren't a fan. Ooh, I have some crafting supplies we could use to make jewelry. We could even use stuff we find around the beach to accentuate them.
Really?
What? Really? I want to make a necklace.
That'd be great.
I'd be interested in trying my hand at that too. I could do that. Nice.
Absolutely.
Impromptu crafting is my kind of party. I'd like to join too, please. Wow, nobody's doing volleyball then. I'll play volleyball. I'll make some jewelry. I'm not a big sports person. Already you were imagining let Derek be the sports guy. Derek here, playing volleyball, shirtless, topless, in his swimming trunks, dripping wet from the beach water. That would have been nice. It's okay. It's okay. In due time. In due time, Archangel. Already you were imagining various designs you could make depending on what league let you use. Your cousin shot you a thumbs up, clearly happy with your decision. Kyra got up from the towel she was sitting on. She brushed some sand off her legs and then stretched her arms over her head.
Can do.
I'm up for a few rounds. Well, since there's still a free spot, I'll throw my hat in the ring. The things I do for family.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I'd love that. Liz got up from where she was sitting, and you could tell by her expression that she was already determined to win. You laughed to yourself, curious now how that game would turn out. Now that plans were settled, the group temporarily split into two. Okay, let me pop back to the house and get my supplies. All right. Anything we can do while you're gone? Yes, I can start clearing out the towels for us to work at. And if you want, look around for good stuff to use.
I'm on it.
Roger that. While Lee ran back to the house, the group did just as she suggested. By the time she returned, everyone had their craft area ready to work at. Lee sat down on one of the towels and looked up at everyone eagerly. She held up two necklace options. I hope you've all been thinking about what you want to make. I have for everyone a choice of either a chain or a threaded rope. How do I pick? All I know is that I want to put some sea glass chunks on it. That is a charming idea. His gaze went back and forth between Lee's two necklace base options. You could tell he was thinking quite hard about it. I can't decide anything for mine. No rush, I'll leave the strands here and you can decorate it however you want later. I suppose I'll use whatever I spot around the beach first. Fate can decide. I think I'll keep it classic and only worry about finding a decent shell. Yeah, I'm planning on doing shells too. I want to find some sea glass too. I'm gonna hunt for a handful of shells to pick from. I'm gonna look for some driftwood. I want to use some stones. I'll just wait and see. I don't have a plan. I'll just wait and see. I don't have a plan. Baxter nodded, obviously able to relate to that mindset. Cove crossed his arms and chewed at the inside of his cheek. You aren't the only one that noticed. What's wrong, Cove? I'm not sure what to use. I mean, ideally I'd want a shark tooth, but what are the chances I could even find one? Mom smiled. You both looked at him sympathetically. Sorry, the rare downside of not having a shark-filled coast. That would make for a really nice necklace, though. I know. At Cove's pouting, Mom gave him a little bump on the shoulder with her fist. Well, don't lose all hope. You never know. You might end up really lucky. Cove laughed. It cheered him up, even though he wasn't really convinced. After that, the little crafting club busily went to work on their pieces. Whatever they decided on using was attached in loops that were then slid into their necklace base. Terry was immensely proud of herself when she was done. Hers was simple but gorgeous because of the striking piece of sea glass she painstakingly searched for and found. Baxter excitedly showed his finished piece off to everyone. He stayed true to his word and used various materials he found along the beach. The necklace looked like it had a good weight from the clutter. He always had an eclectic style, it seemed. Cove ended up using driftwood of varying lengths to design his necklace. Despite not finding any shark teeth, he still looked pretty pleased. Mom decided on a medium-sized purple ring to top shell as the centerpiece of hers, and Lee went with a few small Simnia shells. They both put their necklaces on soon after finishing them. After combing the beach several times, you found just what you were looking for. It took a bit, but you managed to make a necklace you were satisfied with. It mostly had driftwood. Your group of crafters could also cheer for the volleyball players whenever shouts could be heard coming out of the court. Mostly driftwood? No. I'm getting glass. Sea glass. Sea glass. Great minds thinking the same. We can look together. Happy with the suggestion, you nodded. Nah, it's fine. No, that's fine. I'll bond with Baxter. I want to bond with Baxter more for this one because I felt like I wasn't as nice to him last time. So, Your group of crafters would also cheer for the volleyball players whenever shouts could be heard coming out of the court. On top of that, you all would hold up each newly made piece in the air and the players would take a breather to applaud the creation. You really enjoyed searching the beach, trading supplies, and watching everyone make their necklaces. The crafting club was definitely a success, and you weren't the only one that had a blast. The afternoon continued to drift by, but the fun was still going strong. Occasionally someone would head back to the house to use the bathroom, rest away from the sun a while, or retrieve something that they needed, but they always came back. The beach was never empty, and there was always a new conversation to take part in or another game to join. There was only one thing that could bring this beach day to an end, and that was for the day itself to end. Before anyone realized it, the sun began to set over the sea. As that happened, you were taking a break, sitting on a towel with your legs stretched out past it and your feet buried in the warm sand. Shortly, you looked up to see your moms approaching. They stopped in front of you and smiled. "Hey there, kiddo.
How are you?
How are you doing?" "I'm doing great. Today's been amazing." They both sat down, squishing you between them. Ma leaned her head against yours, and Mom started rubbing your back soothingly. Nothing more was said at first, but Ma sighed contentedly. Mom looked at you wistfully. "We're both really proud of you, Hark.
True.
You grew up to be more than we could ever have hoped." "Thank you. It's only thanks to you two. You already started tearing up. I'm not sure I deserve any of that glowing praise." "Thank you." You were touched by their words, and your voice came out in a whisper. Mom chuckled and lightly brushed a bit of your hair.
Thank you.
"That's not something you need to thank us for." "But still, I wouldn't be here without either of you." Ma wrapped an arm around your middle and squeezed you tightly in a side hug. Glancing at Mom, you saw how teary-eyed she became. She sniffled. You stayed there quietly and contentedly, watching the sun set with your parents for a while, until Mr. Holden called out to you. He was still walking in your direction. "We were talking and think we're going to take a walk down the shore. And if you want to come?" Automatically, you looked to your moms for what they were thinking. Mom glanced from you to Ma and smiled. "That sounds good to me."
That's fantastic.
"Yeah, that'd be very nice. My legs need some stretching." That's a yes across the board. Thrilled, Mr. Holden threw out a thumbs up and began heading back the way he came in a light jog. "Hey, don't leave us in the dust." Cliff kept going forward but flipped around, walking backwards across the sand so he could face you again.
No worries.
"Don't worry, we wouldn't leave without you." "All right, we'll catch up." "Ready to go?" "Uh-huh." Both of your moms held a hand out to you. Chuckling, you gave them each one and you all strolled back to the rest of the group. When Liz was in reach, Ma used her free hand to pull her into it too. Liz shook her head, but her mouth quirked into a smirk and she didn't resist. Together as a family, you followed behind the others hand in hand. Your feet squished into the wet sand as the waves rolled over them, and you didn't have a single care in the world as more and more stars began to dot the sky. Once the sun had long been out of sight, it was finally time to pack up. The closing of the day and the ever-approaching end of summer seemed to intertwine. It caused a quiet, reflective mood to blanket over the group. On the beach, Terry and Miranda took turns compressing Cove in a hug before moving on to do the same with you. You chuckled, still overjoyed that you got to see them today. "I'm sorry we have to go already. My parents are here." "That's okay. But still, I wish we could help clear this all up." "Don't worry about it. Just thanks for coming out today. It was cool having everyone here."
Yep.
"Oh yeah, I'm super glad we came. Hopefully we can do it again sometime." Nodding, you turned your attention to Terry. She wore a large grin on her face and held a hand out for a low five. You obliged.
See you later.
"Take care of yourselves, buddies." After that, they walked away, waving to you and Cove as they went down the shore. Cove waved quietly back with a small smile on his face. You waved too. "Bye. Have a safe trip then. I'm happy I got to see them." "I'm happy I got to see them." You looked at Cove. He nodded.
Me too.
"Me too." Taking you by surprise, Terry jumped and twisted around. She kept up with Miranda by walking backwards. She kept the mood of your farewell light by shooting finger guns at you and Cove. Miranda bumped her with a hip. It left everyone with a laugh just before they disappeared down the bend. "Hark?
Come on.
Hey, Cove, could you come here?" Both of your parents were motioning for you. The two of you went to them. Tons of things ended up at the beach over the course of the day, so there was still so much to pack up and the parents needed help. With a nod, you got to it, stuffing various things into the bags and bundling them up in towels. Once things were ready to go, everyone filled their arms with as much as they could carry. Absolutely no one wanted this to be a back-and-forth kind of task. The walk back home ended up being mostly quiet. Each person seemed to be feeling the effects of the day. A cool breeze carried you across the sand and onto the road. There was a sigh of relief from what it felt like the group was a whole. When they arrived back to the neighborhood, Baxter carefully placed what he had been carrying on the ground. Thank you so much for helping with that.
Thanks.
No, thank you for allowing me to join today. You all shared with me. Helping to carry it back is the least I can do. Ma nodded and the others started collecting their things from his pile. Baxter, meanwhile, stepped over to you and Cove. It really was a pleasure getting to know you both this summer. His head tilted towards you and he smiled warmly. Baxter offered you his hand. You used your freer hand to shake his. You waved goodbye instead. You patted his shoulder. You side-hugged him. You raised your hand for a high five. I'll side-hug him. It took a moment, but after shuffling what you were carrying, you were able to free one of your hands enough to pull Baxter into a quick hug. He genuinely laughed and looked at you fondly when you let go. I think we did end up as good friends. I really enjoyed meeting you. Good luck on your next semester of school. You didn't say anything. I think we did end up as good friends.
Glad to hear it.
I wholeheartedly agree, Hark. I enjoyed this vacation immensely thanks to you. Baxter turned to shake Cove's hand this time. He was a little incredulous for a moment, but then Cove eventually shifted what he was carrying and took Baxter's hand. It wasn't long, but it was a solid handshake. Baxter was clearly pleased. I wish we had more time together, but it was still a nice ride while it lasted. Would happily do it all over again. Bye, Baxter. Yeah, bye. Baxter nodded and walked a few steps toward his condo. He then stopped and waved.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Baxter sauntered away completely and disappeared inside the condo to return to his own things. His time with you and your family and friends ending. You paused for a moment, staring at where he went. But afterwards, you looked back over at the rest of the group. Lee and Liz were just going inside your house. You couldn't spot Kyra or Mr. Holden anywhere, but the door to their house was wide open. Mom approached you with an amused look on her face. Seems like you're holding up some Holden things. Surprised you glanced down to take a... I love that, actually. Surprised you glanced down to take a quick inventory of what you were holding. Mom was right. Some of it belonged to the neighbors. Would you mind dropping it off now? Looking down again at everything you were carrying, you sighed. A teasing grin played at your lips. The Holdens is a long walk from here. Cove snorted and laughed next to you, making her grin widen. Mom chuckled and shook her head. You can hack it, and then you'll get to experience the joy of a job well done. You laughed happily and nodded. Mom smiled fondly. Cove took a few steps towards his house and stopped, waiting for you. Good night, Cove. I'll see you inside, Hark. Night. You caught up to Cove, and together you went over to his house. Walking in the front door, you saw Kyra and Mr. Holden busily unpacking already. Things were scattered on counters, and they were moving around each other, putting their items away. They both lifted their heads when Cove closed the front door. Hey. It's nice seeing you again already, Hark. Her teasing tone brought a light smile to your face. You hefted the stuff in your arms a little closer. I ended up with things for viewers from the beach. Oh, thanks for getting that to us. You can put it in here on that coffee table. Mr. Holden pointed at the surface he was referring to, and you immediately left what didn't belong to your family there. Cove put his own things down on the floor and just at his feet, wading through everything strewn about to reach his parents. Putting your family stuff on the ground for a moment, you dusted your hands off and straightened up. You needed a second of rest and a minute to restitute it all. Restitute it all. You went over closer to where Cove and his parents were. Kyra smiled gently at you. Thank you for hanging out with me today. It was a blast. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Every time I've gotten to come by, it's been an absolute joy. Things really couldn't have worked out better. Mr. Holden took a step closer to you. Kyra moved aside and let him say goodbye too. He grinned. Thanks for always being such a friendly neighbor, and not just right now, but for as long as I've known you. I didn't always make it easy, but you and your family are good people. I really truly appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks again, Hark, so much. At that, Mr. Holden reached over and gave you a soft pat on the top of your head. I'm really glad that you're my neighbor. You're good people too. You hugged him. Goodbye, Mr. Holden. I'll hug him. He's Cove's hot dad. You hugged him. You burst forward into Mr. Holden and wrapped your arms around him. Surprised, he went rigid immediately. But several moments later, he relaxed and began to lightly pat your back before shifting into a full hug. You squeezed him tighter. Thanks for moving in. As you let go, he sniffed, but when he met your gaze once more, his mouth pulled into a wide, happy grin. Mr. Holden was staring at you, but his gaze seemed far away. Maybe he was looking back at who he used to be, the 8-year-old he had asked to be his son's new friend, which didn't end up working. Bye, Hark. He smiled softly. Then Tove took a step forward. He gestured to his pile of things he had carried into the house. Don't worry about all that. I'll put stuff away in a few minutes. Right, I need to go do the same with my family. I figured. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's interesting if I ended up being more closer with his dad than Cove himself. Cove walked you to the door and held it open. Taking one last check around to make sure you had all your things to bring home, you went into the road. He leaned his body against the door frame, not following you out. So this is it, huh? Actually, that's not what I mean. His expression twisted and he shook his head a bit, like he was trying to banish the pensive thoughts.
Bye.
I'll just say bye. Yeah, bye. It won't be long before you'll see me again. You offered him a small wave goodbye with one of your hands. As you walked over to your own front door, you stopped. Turning around, you spotted Cove right where you left him. You laughed quietly to yourself. For a small pause, you both stared at each other from across the street. I'll say, good night. Night. You shouted across the way to one another. He moved one of his arms in a big wave so you couldn't miss it. After one more shared nod, you opened the door and went inside, shutting it behind you. A few steps in, you saw your family gathered in the living room. They were still busy unpacking and cleaning. You added the things you brought to the pile on the kitchen counter. Mom stood up, rubbing her eyes a bit. She yawned loudly. I'm bushed. How about we finish the rest of the chores tomorrow? Yes, honestly, it's too late for this.
Thanks.
Please and thank you. Ma put her hands on her hips and turned to assess the room. Ma was not one who liked to leave a mess about. She sighed. Yeah, I'm the same way. If there are still dishes in the sink, I cannot go to bed without washing them. At least it'd be hard for me. It'd be a struggle for me to leave dirty dishes in the sink. Maybe if there was one or two, but a big pile of dishes, oh no. That needs to be taken care of. Other than that, things around the house being cleaned up, I also like to do that before bed too. But sometimes if I'm really that exhausted, it can be a tomorrow problem.
All right.
I suppose we can make an exception to the usual rule. It has been a really long day. Liz grinned contentedly. Lee wasted no time in skipping over to you and hooked you into a side hug. Good night. I hope you have the loveliest of dreams. I'll be dreaming of Derek. I hope you have good dreams too. You hugged her back. You shook her head. You pulled her close into a bear hug. Lee giggled until you released her. I hope you sleep well too. Oh, I totally will. The moment my head hits the pillow, I'll be out. Here's to us, Hark. Tonight, tomorrow, and forever. I love you, cousin. You smirked at that. Yeah, family forever. Thanks, Lee. You're lucky. Really lucky. You nodded quietly. Yeah, family forever. Lee leaned in close to whisper in your ear. You didn't fail to catch the teasing look on her face.
Aww.
Exactly. There's no escape. That got a laugh out of you. You lightly pushed her shoulder. Lee stretched her arms high over her head. She yawned loudly and looked at you with tired eyes. I think that's my cue to head to bed. Bye. I think so too. Have fun sharing the room with Liz. She laughed at that and Lee shuffled off towards the guest bedroom. Before you had a chance to do anything else, you could feel the top of your head being tapped. You spun around to see Liz smirking. Nighty-night. I'm heading to bed too. It's been a long day and I have a lot to prepare for tomorrow. Exhaling, you automatically started fixing the back of your hair. When Liz didn't immediately walk away, you smiled softly at her. Everything okay? Her gaze moved away and you knew she had more to say. You waited patiently for Liz to compose her thoughts. It's been a good summer. It was nice to come back home. You nodded and Liv gave you a teasing nudge as she went by. Amused, you turned and watched her go. Love you, baby brother. Good night, Liz. I love you too. Bye, old sister. You gave her a good hug tonight. You smiled back. I guess we're okay now. I'll say, bye, old sister. Liz turned back to smirk at you. Chuckling, you gave her a small wave. Sleep well. You too. When Liz was out of sight, Mom started up the next conversation over her shoulder. Aren't you heading up to bed too? I want to relax first. I want to finish getting everything cleaned up.
What?
What? Are you sure? It can wait. Glancing around the room a moment, the disarray made you feel a bit twitchy. You had a feeling you'd sleep sounder if you took your time cleaning before bed. Yeah. Ma came over too, smiling understandingly. She pulled you into a big hug.
Love you.
All right, you do what you need to. I love you. When you were done hugging Mom pulled you into another hug. Their actions basically handing you off to the other, and you laughing jovially.
I love you.
I love you so much. Good night. I love you too. You're the best parents. You didn't say anything. I love you too. Aw. They both couldn't resist taking turns hugging you again. Your smile widened. It felt good to be so loved. Good night, kiddo. Sleep tight. Good night, sweetie. Night. After that, your moms headed off towards their bedroom down the hall. You were about to turn the other direction when you heard Mom's voice. And don't let the bed bugs bite. You heard Ma chuckling as you watched them go with a smile. It was a little while later. You were finished putting everything away. You didn't rush the process at all. Your sleeping hours may have been cut into, but you felt so much better getting this done. You sighed contentedly, gazing at the organized living room and kitchen. Before you could take a well-earned break on the couch, something out the window caught your eye. Your feet brought you right in front of the large window spanning the length of the back wall. You stared out into the hills behind your house. Something inside told you that this was the right kind of night to take a trip out there. You went over the front door. Stepping over the threshold, you gave the living room one last glance over your shoulder. Then you shut the door behind you. Silently, you made your way to the Poppy Hill. There is no way I would have gone to the Poppy Hill. I would have gone straight to bed. Sorry, would not have done this. With light steps in the dark, you walked across the hills behind your house. Up ahead at the very top, silhouetted beneath the night sky, was a familiar figure, already waiting there. It didn't surprise you in the slightest that Cove had also chosen to visit this spot tonight. Smiling, you wondered just how he always got there first. You even had the advantage of living closer. Then again, and maybe it was only in your mind, but somehow Cove was intrinsically linked with this place. After all these years, it would be weird to scan this horizon and not find him there, as surreal as a shore without the sea. The distance between you was growing shorter by the second. Hearing the grass and earth crunch under your feet, Cove turned. A grin spread over his face as he saw you. He wasn't shocked at your appearance there either. I'm surprised. I really do not think I would be doing this in the middle of the night. Like, after I was already tired and I cleaned up the room, I've been like, I'm done. Time to go to bed. You took your place standing behind him on the crest of the Poppy Hill, looking out over the ocean. Same as you'd done on countless times since he'd first arrived, when you found him on this very same spot. Hark. He had officially broken the silence, the spell that had held you both in place. You looked at him expectantly. There's something I always kind of wondered about. He cocked his head, giving a sidelong glance. What did you think about when we met? I was just a kid you'd never seen before, bawling his eyes out on the hill next to your house. He chuckled, his eyes drifting across the sea beyond, before flicking back to you. The way his gaze pulled back to you made it clear that he was genuinely interested in the topic. Luckily for him, you remembered what initially struck you in that moment. It was as if it only happened yesterday. Well, I remember noticing your very bright green hair. Cove burst into genuine laughter at your reply. I guess that's fair. It did kind of stand out. Smiling, you continued to reminisce about the first meeting. I also remember trying to cheer you up. I remember that too. I don't think I really tried that hard, honestly, if I'm being honest. I don't remember trying too hard. He ran a hand through his hair, and you knew his line of questioning wasn't at the end, even before he spoke again. Do you remember what you thought about me? You know, as a person. Was I annoying or mean? Or I'm not mean. I didn't think you were very nice. Kind of scared me, to be honest. You were alright. I got to admit I didn't think much of you. I didn't know what to make of you at first. I don't really remember anymore. I didn't know what to make of you at first. Cove nodded, accepting your answer without question. Cove's hand drifted to the mark on his scar to the scar on his arm, his fingers unconsciously gliding over the mark. It was much less noticeable than it had been when the neon pink cast had first come off, shrunken gradually over the years as his body healed, then dwarfed in comparison to his growing body. Still, his fingers came back to it without thinking. He gave a half smile, not meeting your eyes. No matter what you were thinking, I doubt it was worse than what I had going on in my mind. You raised an eyebrow at his vague words, wondering what it was that he meant. Cove lifted his head up, finally committing to see your eyes fully once more. I remember you that day. I remember it really well. I don't think I'd ever be able to forget. I can picture the way you looked back when I first saw you standing right there. I still know the expression on your face when you chose to sit with me in the grass. He chuckled self-derisively, interrupting his own monologue. You scared me at first. I figured I'd be alone out there until I had to face my dad again, and then suddenly another kid appeared out of nowhere. It was startling, but I got over that fast. You were a strange person in a strange place, but in that moment you were exactly what I needed. Somebody I could talk to freely about what was happening and how it made me feel. And then we ended up not really, hanging out after that. And you listened to me. You stayed with me only because the game forced me to. He sighed, then bit his lip as he gave a small smile. I was a little bit spoiled growing up. You let him continue. A little? Yeah, you were. It wasn't bad. You were dealing with a lot. You let him continue. He looked off again, seeking clarity for his thoughts in the expanse of the night sky. What I'm trying to say is, when I was younger, I viewed myself basically as the center of the universe. I didn't even imagine it wasn't like that. Things didn't simply happen. That would be weird, according to my little kid brain. It made far more sense that everything in my life had a specific connection to me somehow, right? He sought affirmation in you, wavy brows raised as he tried to explain his childlike logic. So at the time, you felt almost unreal. Like you weren't just anyone. Some other kid who happened to live in the neighborhood with your whole life that wasn't connected to Cove Holden. No, to me you were there so that you could find me when I was lost. Wow, he definitely seems to put a lot more value on our first time meeting each other than I did, for sure. Like, it definitely seemed to mean way more to him than it did for me. I kind of expected it all to vanish like a dream when that night was over. I would wake up and everything would be the same again. I'd be back in my bed at home, my real home, with both my parents. The future was something I couldn't picture anymore. I didn't know what school would be like when I went back, or the table where I'd eat breakfast the next morning, or anything. And if I couldn't imagine it, how could I think it was something actually happening? I couldn't grasp my new reality. It was too big for me to hold all at once. So, I never thought I'd see you again. I get that. I don't know what going through that is like. I never saw what was coming either. You didn't say anything. I'll say, I'll say I never saw what was coming either. You did make it very clear that you'd be a big part of my life from then on, whether I liked it or not. Maybe you'd have spun on your heels and left me there right then if I had. Cove sighed contentedly. His voice was as delicate as the petals on the poppies which crowned his hill. He had tilted his head up, thoughts lost in the sparse clouds above. I wonder how late it is. I guess it doesn't really matter. My dad is fine with me being out whenever. You could use your phone to check the time. You could still text your dad about what you're doing. I'm gonna message my moms. My moms might care, but I don't feel like telling them. You wanted to make sure you messaged your mom about what was going on. You quietly nodded. You wanted to make sure you messaged... You wanted to make sure you messaged your mom into what's going on. You brought your phone out just long enough to shoot off a text. They wouldn't see it anytime soon, but they'd be in the loop once they were up. With a chuckle, Cove plopped down on the ground and laid on his back, his usual way of spending time there. You stayed standing. You sat down. You laid on your back. You stayed standing. You stood by close enough to continue speaking, but you didn't want to get on the ground. The both of you fully settled in to relax on the hill. It felt like just the beginning of one of your nightly outings, but then you realized the sun was peeking out over the horizon. I definitely would not have stayed out here all night with Cove. I definitely would not have done that. Cove spoke up with a disbelieving tone. It really was late. Your neighbor wasn't a stranger to being awake at dawn. However, not like this. He was normally an early sleeper, early riser. This unexpected sunrise particularly awed him. The two of you watched on silently as the sun began to light the world. He eyed the hill sprawling out before you, and down below where the wild hill and nature gave way to civilization. Time to go home. It was a nice night, but we can't stay forever. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea why the game thought that if we're indifferent to Cove, why the heck are we staying out here after such a long, exhausting day? It doesn't make sense for my character to just be out here all night with someone that I'm polite acquaintances with. I'm polite acquaintances with Cove. Yeah, I've got to get back. Okay, bye. Take care of yourself. Goodbye, Cove. You simply smiled. Goodbye, Cove. With a small nod, Cove got to his feet and began his descent down the poppy hill. You watched him go. The world began to fade and blur. You were absolutely ready to get into bed. Then, before you realized it, that's where you were. Comfortable and content, wrapped in your soft blanket after a sleepy stroll. I would have been, perfectly content, 6 hours before that. Your eyelids dipped, but you felt good. You were relaxed. Everything that had come before this had reassured you of that. You were confident that when you opened them again, things would be okay. And just as suddenly as sleep came, it was over. A consistent ringing of your phone had stirred you. Through bleary eyes, you checked out what the news was. There was a lot of it. Morning was gone, and it was squarely into the afternoon. With that came plenty of interest in your upcoming plans. Moms, Liz, and Lee wanted to go into town at some point. Derek was hoping to call again, since catching up was cut kind of short last time. Plus, Terry and Miranda had both gone crazy in a group chat, sharing various texts and images to your amusement. There was always something going on, it seemed. But family and friends were waiting, more memories could be made, so you pulled yourself out of bed to meet them. Another step forward. Achievement unlocked. Life takes another step forward. Nice. So cool.